Hi, welcome back to class. My name's Ben. Today, I'm going to explain a little bit about how to relate our project to business impact. First of all, I need to explain typical team structure in clinical and medical field in industry. Normally, there are 8 teams: clinical affair, medical affair, regulatory affair, R&D, quality, manufacture, marketing, and sales. The team structures might be a little different for each company, but mostly they have those kind of structures. Each functional team has different roles, and I'm going to break down what each team does. Clinical Affair conducts clinical trials and gathers clinical evidence for regulatory approval. To do this, they design and manage clinical trials, ensure good clinical practice compliance or GCP compliance, write and submit clinical evaluation reports and clinical study reports, and work with key opinion leaders. It has statistical programmers and biostatisticians to generate reports using SAS in most companies. In clinical setting, SAS is the most loved programming language as it maintains the same libraries and structures with concrete theoretical statistical background. R and Python are also used, but I'm sure that statistical programmers and biostatisticians in clinical affair in most of companies mainly use SAS. If you have a chance, I highly recommend to learn it, and it'll be very helpful for you to survive in clinical and medical company. Next one is medical affair. This team provides scientific and clinical expertise. To do so, they need to support clinical evidence generation, stay up to date with scientific literature, computer data, and regulatory trends to guide decision-making, work with key opinion leaders, and analyze clinical trial data and generate scientific insights to improve product positioning. For the scientific communication, they need a lot of evidence generations. Regulatory affair ensures compliance with FDA and other regulations. They prepare regulatory submissions, monitor regulatory changes, and ensure documentation aligns with quality and clinical requirements. For R&D, or research and development team, designs, prototypes, and develop medical interventions. I keep using the word intervention as it covers medical device, medicine, and medical treatment that companies provide. And this word is quite common in medical field, and I haven't heard this until I work in medical industry. Anyway, R&D team creates concepts and prototypes based on clinical needs and market demands, conduct feasibility studies to assess technical, clinical, and regulatory viability, work with surgeons, clinicians, and key opinion leaders to refine designs and develop risk management plans and failure mode analysis to ensure patient safety. Here, patient safety is crucial for those medical companies. Adverse event, which we call AE in general, if this happens, the trust on our product drops down largely, and sometimes the study can be even canceled. So it is very, very, very important to set up risk management plans to minimize adverse event and other possible risks. Every team has their own risk management plans, actually. Quality team maintains ISO 13485, which means International Standard for Quality Management System, FDA QSR, which is FDA Quality System Regulations, and GMP compliance, which is Good Manufacturing Practice compliance. They ensure design controls and risk management, conduct internal and external audits, manage JPA, CAPA, corrective and preventive actions, complaints, and non-conformances. I have been talking about quite many abbreviations like CAPA, ISO, FDA, and people in clinical field always use those words, and I had to memorize all of them when I just started to work. For example, PD as protocol deviation, APR as annual performance report, GCP as good clinical practice, and so on. What you see here will be really a small part of them. But you need to memorize all of them because people use these words a lot and they're quite common abbreviations. Anyway, let's move to the next functional team. Manufacturing team is in charge of producing medical interventions at scale while maintaining compliances. They do process validation, supplier management and outsourcing, and ensure FDA-compliant production. Marketing team performs market research, commercialization, and post-market surveillance. They develop go-to-market strategies, conduct health economics and reimbursement analysis, and manage complaints and post-market clinical follow-up. Finally, sales team educate physicians, hospitals, and distributors. They train healthcare care providers so that they use our product properly without any mistakes. Less mistakes means less adverse events or protocol deviations that company cares the most. Also, they provide technical and clinical support. I reviewed basic roles of each functional team to explain which team I should consider as primary stakeholder. For this ClinicalTrials.gov dashboard, I believe medical affairs team will be suitable as the primary stakeholder. They need to stay up to date with competitor data, scientific journals, and support clinical evidence generation. That's huge amount of publications and data that they need to regularly search, review, confirm, collect, and recreate as their own evidences. Other teams can also use this tool for evidence generation, site availability, scientific communication, training, and so on. But here, I'll assume this project is for a medical affairs team that I prepared, and I want to present the business impact for them. So I would suggest that I'll create an automation process of ClinicalTrials.gov dashboard with regular update. In the CTTI database, which is public clinical trial information, 80% of COVID-19 related clinical trials are highly related to our product. And at the current stage, new clinical trial information are manually identified, reviewed, and confirmed by 3 different functional teams weekly or bi-weekly at this moment. Up-to-date information of clinical trials are crucial to business insights and upcoming publications, and normally it takes 10 to 20 hours for a medical affairs team to collect information per person per week. Well, of course, for this information, I have to talk with them first, and always communication is the key. And I will suggest an AI decision-making tool, which will minimize the manual review process of the data and save 80% of their time and labor. And finally, 10 people in medical affairs team are going to use the tool regularly. I emphasize what percentage I can save in terms of labor and time. Both are related to company's interest or expense. And I also talk about the current stage for leadership to understand what will be the differences. And later on, of course, I have to talk about risk assessment plan. But of course, I should talk about this very well, because if it looks too risky, it will discourage the leadership and project opening wouldn't even happen. You need to make a very good storytelling and make sure to mention what will be the risk so that leadership can judge and give direction wisely. Then I itemize reports that I'm going to build. For this project, I'm going to create trial summary, site information, publication information, and gender information. So we have to address the most important information for the first meeting. Remember to talk about these. Current stage and future stage of the workflow by this project performance, name stakeholders and collaborators, put serious effort on storytelling about risk assessment, mention required supports if there is any, such as server access permission, required tools to buy, and so on. Lastly, explain milestone, including short-term goals for the preliminary results and reports. If you cannot show any results within a certain amount of time, your project wouldn't look good. Make sure to set up an easy, achievable short-term goal. Today, I talked about an example how to relate business impact and my project. Think about these when you open a new project. And remember, opening a project at the very beginning is very difficult without good communication with your team members. Always be friendly, talk more, and get some supports. Communication is the key. Thank you for watching. Hi, welcome back to class. I showed how to extract data from CTTI database using API and briefly showed how the data look like. And in the previous session, we talked about business impact and what we wanted to show. To present our data, first, we need to understand what we have. Then, we need to deep dive into our data. In this session, I'll review tables one by one to set up the goals for each table. First, let me show a raw condition table without any filtering. You will see a lot of conditions, and they are all related to certain types of diseases. For our use case, we want to focus on the medicine for COVID-19 or coronavirus. I'll show how they look like here, but we will filter them in the code later. It takes a while because I extract a raw table. There are many different types of COVID-19 related conditions, and I cannot show them all at once. I have to click it manually. So I'm going to click only some of them and also cure coronavirus related conditions. I'll just click some of them as an example, but there should be way more, and I'm going to filter them in the code. Most of medical data you'll face will be so messy like this. Yes, literally very messy. The main reason is that there's no such standard how they upload the public data, so it is out of control. There's no regulation. For example, we want to search COVID-19 or coronavirus. Both actually means the same. When you type corona, you can see many variability already. You can see 2019 novel coronavirus, 2019 novel coronavirus disease, 2019 novel coronavirus infection, and so on. How they unload the name of condition are all different, but we all know they are talking about the same disease. When we present our data without knowing it, then it will actually confuse our stakeholders. They click different options and they all look the same to stakeholders, and it'll look really bad. Definitely, we don't want to do that. We need to unify the name for the same conditions, and that's what we need to do in our code. Also, there is a possibility that the keyword corona will include other coronary artery diseases. So we'll use two keywords that we know: COVID-19, coronavirus, or COVID-19. But wait, what about coronavirus? There are 7 different types of coronavirus actually. Then, do we want to include other 6 types of coronavirus? Actually, no. So we can include only if we detect the keywords coronavirus and 19. Then we will encounter another issue. This is a very common issue when you do keyword filtering on messy data. For some trials, they would type coronavirus without any description, but actually it is about COVID-19 coronavirus. Then we face the issue. Number 1, include false positives, meaning they are not related, but we include for now. Number 2, exclude false negatives, meaning they are related, but we exclude for now. Typically, there are more numbers of false positives compared to false negatives if we perform keyword filtering correctly. You must judge which way you want to go. It really depends on the resource you have or your risk assessment plan. Normally, it is very risky to miss false negatives. However, if you end up with including all false negatives, then you will end up with huge number of false positives, which means you also need to spend huge amount of time to exclude them or set up another steps. Therefore, you need to look in your data, understand your data, find out if we can have other resources to help this filtering process, and then decide which option you are going to use. For this project, I choose to include all coronavirus and filter them with start date of the clinical trials so that we can exclude previous coronavirus before 2019. By doing that, we can have more precise set of data. I will not go through too much fine-tuning because this is not a real project. But make sure you have to clean up your data very well if you actually work on this kind of project at workplace. So now, finally we got conditions: coronavirus, COVID-19, COVID-19, and then we'll filter out any trials before 2019. Now, we go to intervention table. We are producing remdesivir, so we are mainly interested in it. But it will be boring if we look at only one intervention, right? Nobody's curious about it. Let's assume we want to explore the differences between isolated remdesivir usage versus mixed with other medicine. As you can see, there are some cases with combinations like lopinavir, ritonavir, and remdesivir combination, or LG 097558 and remdesivir, something like that. So I'll consider isolated usage case and combined case, if it is the case. Then we may want to know how other competitors' medicine work when they are used alone. Here, I would like to add more COVID-19 antiviral medications. One good example will be this. So these are the combinations of antiviral medications. But there are way more number of antiviral medications for COVID-19. So I'm going to add all those keywords. I'm going to show in the code since there are so many COVID-19 antiviral medications. In sponsors table, there is agency class. This could be federal, industry, NIH, and any other types of agency class. Normally, we are working in industry and we mainly focus on industry-related trials. So, in the later step, we'll make another column, industry and non-industry. Let me show an example here. And then I'm going to fill all the rows, and we are going to filter out, or we're going to separate the group by this column. And there is lead or collaborator column. There'll be only two values, lead or collaborator. Depends on what we need. You sometimes need both collaborators and lead, or only lead. For our case, we'll use only lead. So we'll filter our collaborator trials. Usually, main sponsors are more important than collaborators when we search trials. And we see sponsor names. Normally, there is some variability for the name as well. It is too big to correct all by myself, so I would not go into too much details here. But usually, each company has their own list to detect related sponsor names. For example, let's assume there is a medical center named NYU Langone Health. It can be written as New York University Langone Health or New York University Langone Health Medical Center. We will not know what name they're going to use for the public data. Therefore, this is also time-consuming part to clean up the sponsor names when you extract data. But don't worry, most of cases are abbreviation-related variabilities, so you'll have an idea when you have your own data. Anyway, we wouldn't create a QR filter here one by one, but we'll make another column for industry versus non-industry trials for agency class. Next one is baseline measurement table. I mentioned we're going to extract gender information from clinical trials, and this is the table for it. Baseline measurement means that an initial measurement of a condition that is taken at an early time point and used for comparison over time to look for changes. It could be the first measurement of any outcomes and then it keeps changing, or just demographic information like gender, age, race, and ethnicity that they will never change. These information are crucial because the same treatment or medicine work differently for different gender or race. So baseline information like gender is way more important than you might imagine. And that was why I included this information for the report. However, Processing this information is whole another level. We have seen intervention, condition, sponsor tables. They look quite intuitive and easy to understand. However, this is not. Let me briefly explain what is going on here. First of all, we have to look at classification column. It indicates what kind of measure is saved. If we match classification, category, units, and param value, then we can extract the baseline information of certain baseline measurement. Since we're interested in gender, let me filter out classification with gender. The keyword would be sex or gender, and those will be included in the keyword filter inside code. Anyway, once I filter gender only, you can see male, female, and other values in category column. Title means how the information was classified and saved. There are certain rules. In this case, it only has sex, gender, customized option, so we don't need to worry about it. Then, you may notice there are duplicated rows for one entity ID. What numbers should I look at then? Actually, you need to understand the concept ARM. ARM means that a group of patients receiving a specific treatment or no treatment. Different ARM means different interventions are given in general. So, researchers save those baseline information separately for different arms. Here, let's look at this entity ID. Each gender category has 6 different rows. 6, 6, and 6. Definitely, they're not the same information. This tells me that there are 5 different arms, and one, usually the last one, is the total count. You can see the sum of those 5 numbers will be sum 291. As you can see, the sum of 5 arms will be the number at the BG005 row. I wish this sounds clear. There are 5 different arms, and then they're going to save the total number of patients. So in this case, we only want to know the total number of each gender, so there should be another step to remove other rows with individual arms. In conclusion, we have to apply some steps for a baseline measurement table as number 1, classification, include gender and sex keyword. Number 2, filter out rows with individual arms. I cannot say that all entity ID contains this baseline information, because some of clinical trials haven't reported any results. So, it wouldn't contain outcome or baseline information sometimes. We can only show those with reported results for the clinical trials if we want to see the baseline measurements. Finally, we have the main table. This table actually contains a lot of information columns, but I only extract only 4 columns to show here. Of course, the title of the clinical trial is important, so I had to add. Then, start date and completion date, both are very important. Especially start date, we need to filter our clinical trials before 2019, so we are going to use start date column for that purpose. And we are going to use both dates for the site information. So in this table, we are going to show how to process date columns and how to apply them to Power BI in the later step. We have reviewed all the main tables that we need. In the next session, I'm going to talk about how we can apply machine learning process on this project and why we need it. Thank you.